Good morning, good afternoon, and good whenever you are listening. We are back, baby. This is the Pylon Dons Fantasy Football Podcast. The man yelling at you through the mic is none other than Benjamin Nathan Weiner, speaking to you in the third person and the third person only. And as per usual, I am joined by one of my best friends in the whole world, my co-host, my New York Jets apologist, AJ. Carry on. How are we doing?
It is good to be back, my man. I'm doing well. Yeah, we haven't recorded in about 3 weeks. I'm pretty sure this is the longest break that we have taken since we started 14 months ago. We have only been taking like 1 week off here, 1 week off there. Ben has even gone to the liberty of doing solo episodes because he's just a dog. He's just built different like that. Unfortunately, I had a little bout with COVID a couple of weeks ago that really put me on my behind. We really took the time to just kind of recharge because right after we recorded throughout the NFL playoffs, and then right after the NFL playoffs, it was rookies, more rookies, and veterans impacted by rookies, and then more rookies for about 3 months straight. So if you guys have any rookie content, make sure to check out our previous episodes. We did a ton of rookie rankings, pre-draft, post-draft, where to draft these guys, lows, highs. Definitely make sure to give that a look. But yeah, it's just great to be back on the mic. It's very comforting to just see your face, see my face, have the screen up, know we're going to be posting a YouTube video. I'm just super, super amped right now.
Yeah, and on top of AJ's bout with COVID, I've been going through a very intensive interview process in my career, which has been strenuous, but you know how we do things. We get up, we can do this all day. We're always eating. It's the shooter's mentality. It's always about what's next. So that's been electric, but it really is so great to be back on the mic with you, AJ. We have an unbelievable summer lined up. Divisional previews are coming up. I'm going to be making my first guest appearance on a podcast coming up. You know, the 100 Takes article is coming back. We really have some exciting things lined up for you guys, and we cannot wait to get on the soapbox, share our takes, hop in the argument arena, and just honestly be ginormous sweaty nerds about fantasy football because we live for this. And frankly, being back here, like, I don't know if it was the leg day. I don't know if it was the dinner I had with my boy last night. My buddy Kush took me out for a nice little Chinese food dinner for my upcoming birthday, and we attacked, let me tell you. Like, it was certainly, if you want to talk about demon time, it was a really bad night to be a piece of sushi or crispy orange chicken because that got ugly.
Where did you end up going again? Tao?
Oh, we went to Tao downtown, and
yeah, I've been to Tao. Tao is a little bougie. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. I haven't gone since like pre-COVID, but it's very, very good. So I hope you had a great time.
Random things from Tao, just to like some tidbits, because everyone loves when I talk about food or my favorite products. Shout out Bird Dog, shout out Manscaped, shout out Propel. But they had like this tuna tartare on a Pringle. It was like a thinly sliced tuna with chipotle aioli put on a Pringle, and it was ridiculous. And then
like a store-bought Pringle, not like they made some bougie.
You know, like those TikToks when they're like, make it gourmet. It was kind of like that. It was like, here are these Pringles, bro. Make them gourmet.
I respect that.
Yeah, so that was heinous. And a guilty pleasure about me is I love carrot cake. And have you had the carrot cake there?
I have not.
So the carrot cake, it comes in like a candy cake, you know, like dessert art. It comes shaped like a pot with a carrot stuck out of it. Like I almost thought it was like a crazy candle, but no, it was just delicious, moist, cinnamony carrot cake with cream cheese icing. And
you're making me starving right now, by the way.
Well, I just got back from leg day, and all I've had is a banana. So we're gonna get into. Wait, we didn't even talk about today's show yet.
No, we're just having too much fun on the mic.
We're just having so much fun.
We just got to get right into it, though, because we're about to already hit the 5-minute mark. Today, we're just doing some mid-off-season hot takes. It's June. Best ball drafts are starting to gain more and more players. Shout out Underdog. They are doing phenomenal stuff. If you guys are listening with us and you guys are not drafting on Underdog, I highly, highly urge it. It is a blast. You can do drafts for as little as $3. Set it, forget it. Check in your lineups throughout the year. There's tournaments, there's leagues. You guys should really give them a look because I really think that they're doing fantastic things over there. So shout out Underdog. But today we're
Unrelated
going
to
to be
Underdog,
doing,
wait, breaking news.
speaking of
Dan
Underdog,
Campbell is just talking up Quintez Cephas and Trinity Benson. We're going to have to adjust our rankings.
hey, as a former Quintez Cephas truther, I'll gladly gas him up a little bit. But
how many rookies get like 10 targets in their debut, give you like 13 fantasy points, and then you never hear from them ever again? But you were saying
very few. No, but I mean, with Chark there, obviously that's going to be just a moot point. I'm just really excited to get into these mid-off-season hot takes. ADPs are very, very, very volatile right now, just with reports, how depth charts are shaking out, what we're hearing from OTAs. So it's super interesting to monitor that. And really the best way that I've found to monitor that is through the best ball drafts that I've done throughout the offseason, hence why you guys should definitely check it out. But Ben, do you want to take it away with your first take, or I can take it away?
I'll take it away, but before we do, we've gotten rusty. 3 weeks, we've gotten lazy. We're out of shape. We're out of practice. Because we didn't even tell anyone to follow us at AJ the Pylon Don or at Ben the Pylon Don on Twitter, our joint account at Pylon Dons, our Instagram at the Pylon Dons, and check us out on YouTube at Pylon Dons Fantasy Football. And we didn't even shout out our amazing sponsor, Verse Gaming. Keep the house out of your bets with Verse. And now that all of our bases are covered, our ducks are in a row, our lineup is set, and we're really hungry from thinking about the delicious Chinese food I ate last night, I'm going to start off today with Christian Kirk, who I know I don't want to give anyone too much deja vu because I know that I have spent pretty much half of the time on the mic just banging the drum for Christian Kirk. I know this is nothing new to the people. There's been talking about Christian Kirk again, taking him in best ball drafts, picking him up in dynasty for the low. Well, what if I told you that I think that Christian Kirk has a strong chance to finish in the top half of wide receiver 2 territory, top 18. And I even have some statistics and some opinions based on those statistics to back that up. So someone somehow decided that Christian Kirk should just be, I don't know, one of the 4 or 5 most expensive receivers in football. Don't get me wrong. I love Christian Kirk. I think he's great. I've been a truther. I was a truther back from his wide receiver 52 days in 2020 with Arizona. Like, I've been on this. Jacksonville just gave him the bagaroni and cheese, the bag and 3/4. $84 million. He reset the wide receiver market. The reason Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, they all got traded is because Christian Kirk reset the tax brackets. And last year, he was the wide receiver 26 in PPR formats on only 103 targets, 77 receptions for 982 yards and only 5 touchdowns. I think a guy like Devontae Parker could give you 982 yards and 5 touchdowns this year, probably a little less on receptions. What I'm saying is Christian Kirk broke out last year, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like he leveled up like exponentially. He like took a step. But with the money, and think about this Jacksonville offense. ETN is back way earlier than expected. I have to back off a little bit the fading ETN takes. I didn't think he'd be back this early. But these pass catchers are not as good as Christian Kirk. Marvin Jones is old. Zay Jones is not elite. Laviska Shenault, irrelevant. Evan Engram, bust. Dan Arnold could be the number 2 for all we know. But one thing that we do know is that Christian Kirk is the number 1, and he got paid accordingly in a team that is going to be facing many a negative game script. And I think he has an outside chance to be one of the top 10 to 12 players in the NFL in targets and produce like that from a fantasy perspective.
I agree with everything you said. I'll keep my 2 cents pretty brief. The fact that he's going in the back half of the 8th round or later, there's usually about 36 receivers at least taken before him. And I think his floor is wide receiver 3. That's what, if Trevor Lawrence absolutely stinks yet again, I still do believe Christian Kirk's floor is a wide receiver 3. Just like you said, I think money talks, and he's really going to be locked into that volume. And he's the type of receiver, he's not some big-bodied receiver that's catching jump balls and potentially getting hurt or having games where if Trevor Lawrence can't hit him with the deep ball, he's going to struggle and fall off the face of the earth for fantasy relevance. He's 5'11", 200 pounds. He plays both outside and in the slot, as we saw with Arizona. So he's pretty versatile, and I really think they're going to use him just about everywhere. I trust Doug Peterson to know what he's doing. He actually, when he was the Eagles head coach, put together some pretty great fantasy offenses, and I think Doug Peterson is definitely going to utilize Christian Kirk to the fullest. I think it's almost a guarantee that we'll see Christian Kirk get his career high in targets this year.
Yeah, and no one seems to be talking about it. Everyone's like, oh, Christian Kirk, round 8, round 9. That ADP seems fine. I don't understand how you could leave a best ball draft without Christian Kirk at that ADP. Straight up. And in Dynasty, it's kind of it's admittedly a little hard to value him in Dynasty right now because I know how good I think he is. But at the same time, like, I'm probably still not willing to give a top 20 running back for him, admittedly. I'd still rather have Antonio Gibson. I'd rather have Josh Jacobs. I think Damian Harris would be a pretty good over-under on Christian Kirk. So he's a little bit hard to pick up in Dynasty, but for this upcoming redraft season, no brainer. Like, don't overthink it. So with that in mind, AJ, would you like to give me your first take?
Yeah, we're going to get a little bit hot with this one. I've got Miles Sanders finishing inside the top 20 running backs this year. I was a big Miles Sanders fader. I thought his ADP was a little bit ridiculous last year. You basically had to draft him as the RB20. And when you had to draft Miles Sanders, you were drafting him closer to his ceiling. His rookie year was his highest finish of RB14. Obviously didn't play the entirety of the season, was wildly efficient. And that's been the story with Miles Sanders. Player Profiler, does something called true yards per carry. This discounts all runs greater than 10 yards when looking at yards per carry. And Miles Sanders ranked third in the NFL in true yards per carry with 5.2 yards. So this guy's efficient, and his yards per carry have been high now for 3 years straight. He finishes the RB 45.5 PPR with over 900 total scrimmage yards because he had 0 touchdowns. That's just unprecedented. He scored 6 touchdowns in each of his first 2 seasons with the Eagles. And if he had just scored 3 touchdowns last year, he already would have been an RB 32. And if he had scored 6, he would have been the RB 28. So currently, you're drafting him now as around the RB 34. And I think the whole Eagles offense, with the addition of A.J. Brown, is about to take a big leap. And in turn, I think if they're winning more football games, we might see less of Jalen Hurts risking his body running on the ground. That's just like my personal take of what I think will come of the Eagles adding A.J. Brown. I think this team is absolutely loaded. They're actually my sleeper pick to make it to the NFC Championship right now. And I think Miles Sanders is going to be a huge benefactor. They're going to be able to spread out the defense so much more. And he's already wildly efficient. I could easily see him, if he's able to get into the end zone a few more times, putting together a pretty good fantasy football season.
I think it's a great take, especially with the fact that he's going to be an improving offense. I think that Sanders is a great value at ADP. I'm not as passionate about him as you are, but I certainly see your logic, and I can't argue with it. There's a lot of good indicators pointing up for Sanders. I would certainly rather have Miles Sanders at this point over a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he probably has a better shot than a guy like Damian Harris at this point. So I think at his cost, he certainly is a worthwhile investment for sure.
Yeah, he is going around guys like Damian Harris, Melvin Gordon, Cordell Patterson, Rashad Penny. He definitely does have a relatively lower floor than one might like, but that's kind of why you're getting him at a discount. He's not a lock for 4 or 5 receptions. He's not a lock for a ton of volume just because of the way Nick Sirianni runs this offense. But I just am going to bet on the talent in an offense that I think has taken a massive jump.
I love it. I'm going to keep it at the running back position here. And this is a take that I don't have alone, but it's something I love. My buddy Zara on Twitter posted this the other day. Shout out Zara. But great minds think alike. A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, both running back ones this year. This offense is going to run through these 2 guys. It is as simple as it is. I honestly think that it could be the first team in a long time where we're going to see 2 running backs both having snap shares of like over 65, 70%. Because I don't understand how you can take these guys off the field. They are your 2 best offensive playmakers. I like Allen Lazard this year, don't get me wrong, but Aaron Jones is one of the probably 10, 15 best backs in football, and so is A.J. Dillon. I really think that this offense is going to see more Aaron Jones in the slot than we've ever seen before. I think he's going to be catching passes in the flats, and I think A.J. Dillon is going to be the hammer on first and second down, and he's going to be the goal line guy. But additionally, the great thing with A.J. Dillon is he has hands too. Like, this offense is going to be Aaron Rodgers running the ball with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, dumping it off to A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, throwing screen passes to A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. And then the second the defense presses up too much and keys in on those guys, then Aaron Rodgers is letting it fly deep over the top. That's how this offense is going to look. I have a split as well. So with Davante Adams being gone, this is a little chart I found on Twitter. Aaron Jones splits without Davante Adams since 2017. It's been 8 games. He averaged 22.89 PPR points per game with 4.5 receptions for 76 yards, 8 touchdowns a game. Like, this is like the second Davante Adams is out of the lineup, Aaron Jones really seems to put on his best Christian McCaffrey impression. And additionally, with this passing volume, like, Aaron Jones is a good runner, don't get me wrong, but he's not the runner A.J. Dillon is at this point in his career, and that's no disrespect to Aaron Jones. This is A.J. Dillon is 250 pounds and runs like he's $190. That's what this is about. So honestly, I think that both of these guys are going to be elite fantasy options, especially as Rodgers gets older. They're the 2 most clear-cut talented players on the offense outside of Aaron Rodgers. And I think that both players being drafted outside of the top 12 and A.J. Dillon being drafted outside the top 24 is criminal. It's criminal.
The crazy thing, when you think about RB1, that term immediately to people, you think they've got to be putting up 20 bombs every other game. The RB12 in points per game was 15.2 points. As we just discussed with Aaron Jones' splits, Aaron Jones might get 15.2 points per game just in the air by himself. He may not need to do it on the ground. And he may
I don't think he will do it on the ground because A.J. Dillon's doing it on the ground.
And I think Matt LaFleur is very aware of that and is going to get really creative with how he uses Aaron Jones and how he implements an RPO with him as the primary pass catcher at times. A.J. Dillon is a dog. That's pretty much the end of that. So I really think it's possible for both of them to average 15 points a game this year. I don't think it's out of the question at all.
I mean, obviously, I feel similarly. I just screamed about it on the mic for a decent 30 seconds. But AJ, that segues us into your next take.
I'm going to talk. This one is more so my gut than anything else.
Okay. We like gut takes.
I think Hunter Renfrow is going to do relatively close to what he did last year. I'm not convinced he'll get 9 touchdowns again, but I think he could be in for another 100 reception season. He received 128 targets last year, 103 receptions for a little over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. Finished as a top 15 receiver. I want to say wide receiver 13 in full point PPR, obviously lower in standard, but we don't talk about that format here. The reason I'm saying this is because people are pointing to the return of a healthy Darren Waller and Davante Adams as huge negatives for Hunter Renfrow. I think this whole offense is about to just take it to the next level and become a top 5 offense. I could easily see them attempting near 40 pass attempts per game. Last year, they ranked 6th in the NFL at 37.9 pass attempts per game, only behind Dallas, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Josh McDaniels is going to boost that number. Josh McDaniels really does ask a lot out of his slot receivers, historically speaking. I mean, if you just look throughout the history of his Patriots OC tenure, you'll see that slot receivers, whoever it may be, are getting prioritized in terms of looks and targets. And I think that's not going to change, especially when Hunter Renfrow was catching over 80% of the balls thrown his way. An 80.5% catch rate is pretty insane. And I just think that what he did last year, he really, to Derek Carr, became a security blanket in every sense of the word. I mean, his route running was phenomenal, and he pretty much caught everything Derek Carr threw at him. So while Davante Adams is definitely going to be the top dog, I think Hunter Renfrow is right behind him, and it's kind of why I've started easing off of Darren Waller just a little bit recently.
Interesting. Okay, I'm happy that you ended with that because I don't view Devontae Adams as a negative for Hunter Renfrow whatsoever. But I was curious to hear your thoughts on Waller versus Renfrow because I do think that those two together could be interesting. I think this take is totally within the realm of possibility. And look, when you make a hot take, it's hot for a reason. These takes aren't supposed to be no-brainers. Like we're talking about round 9 running backs being RB2s. I'm talking about 2 RB1s on the same team. I'm talking about a guy who's never been a wide receiver 1 having a shot to be one and being a high-end wide receiver 2. So I think that this take is within the realm of possibility, which is really all you can ask for on a hot take.
Yeah, no, it's definitely hot. The big thing for me was that Darren Waller obviously was dealing with injury last year. He's now 30 years old. But when he was healthy, he was relatively inefficient. And he was also getting very, very much different looks than Hunter Renfrow. I mean, he was averaging over 12 yards a reception. Hunter Renfrow was a lot closer to 9 and 10. I think Darren Waller will be used as more of a field stretcher. I think Darren Waller in this offense could have ridiculous touchdown upside this year. I just don't think he's as safe. And I think Hunter Renfrow is just not getting the credit he deserves for how phenomenal he played last year. And I think Derek Carr is definitely not going to forget how helpful Hunter Renfrow was in making them a competitive football team.
Couldn't say it better myself. Moving on to my last take before we get into AJ's last take. I don't understand who decided that Tyreek Hill is now a back-end second-round pick in best ball drafts or dynasty startups, or that he is going behind the likes of Stephon Diggs or Deebo Samuel, or even in some cases, A.J. Brown, or dare I even say it, Jamar Chase. I have Tyreek Hill as a top 6 receiver in redraft next season. There's a whole lot of noise about how he's not with Patrick Mahomes. He's with Tua Tagovailoa. Well, Tyreek Hill had one of the lowest ADOTs in football last year. Everyone thinks of him as a burner because, well, he is a burner. He's Tyreek Hill. He's the cheetah. However, not every single pass is just a streak down the field. They get him the ball in short situations, on screens, on slants, on smoke screen plays. Like, it's not all fades and jets. And frankly, they'll use him in jet sweep rolls as well. And Tua Tagovailoa, for what it's worth, is the deep ball there? Probably not. Is he a very accurate short passer who throws a good ball? Absolutely, he is. So for me, in redraft right now, there's 2 receivers I'm considering as the first receiver off the board, and it's Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson. Afterwards, it gets a little bit murkier. I know Jamar Chase is the 3, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's an absolute upside play. He's a generational receiver. But, like, there's still Devontae Adams. There's still Stephon Diggs in that tier. And, frankly, having a guy like Deebo Samuel, whose role is about to change in a negative way in the sense that he's going to be used less in the run game. And I'm the biggest Trey Lance truther I know, sans Alex Caruso, but I think I could even be more like I could be like a louder one. Maybe not a more passionate one, but a louder one. But there's going to be a quarterback change coming for Deebo Samuel because Jimmy G's not playing. He's not playing.
We'll save this for another day. Yeah.
He's not playing.
We'll save it for
he's not playing. We don't need to save it because there's nothing to go back to because he's not playing. Anyhow, though, like Tyreek Hill has a claim to be the best overall wide receiver in football. That is not an egregious take. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying he deserves to be in that conversation. So for him in this situation with Miami, where they just made him the highest paid wide receiver in football, I forget if his or Adams' contract is a little bigger, but top 2 paid wide receiver, great short passing game quarterback, still in his prime age-wise, a great running mate in Jalen Waddle, who's the 2 to him. And remember, Tyreek Hill played next to Travis Kelce. Tyreek Hill's no stranger to target competition. I just feel like that Tyreek Hill being behind the likes of some of these guys, even Devontae Adams, who has competition with the likes of Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, even with one thing with Stephon Diggs, some people have moved Stephon Diggs up their board because they're like, Adams and Hill are in new situations and Diggs just kind of rises to the top because things are murky. I like Gabe Davis. I like Dawson Knox. I like Jamison Crowder. I like Khalil Shakir. Even James Cook is starting to pique my interest more than rookie season. And there's only so many targets to go around. Don't get me wrong. I know Stephon Diggs is great. But if I believe in all those weapons, whereas in Miami, I kind of just believe in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I want the guy who I believe in more with a better path to volume. So for me, him being taken outside of the top 6 receivers is asinine. And it's really mind-blowing to me, and I'm going to continue to draft Tyreek Hill at his ADP until my little heart falls out.
So, with that being said, you then kind of have to address, and I'm going to ask you, do you think Tua makes the leap to be fantasy relevant? Because we're talking about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, two guys who you seem to like, two guys who have definitely seen their ADP fall since the Tyreek Hill move. They've definitely both climbed down boards
Both of them.
quite a bit. Do you think they're both values? And if so, do you think Tua is also a value being drafted outside of the top 15 QBs right now?
I absolutely think they're both values in dynasty, in redraft, in best ball. And for Tua, I don't have him as a top 12 quarterback, but I almost have him in that Christian. I think that Tua is absolutely a high-end quarterback too, which will be enough for me to support two very strong starting receivers, guys who I don't want to go on the mic and say that they're both going to be top 12 guys. I love Jalen Waddle, and I think his weekly upside is crazy here. And I think that the fact that Chase is around one guy and Jalen Waddle's around three guy, I don't know how well that sits with me, admittedly. However, what I will say, though, is that I certainly have them both in my top 24 with weekly upside for more. And would it be crazy if we're talking about a top 6 guy and a top 18 guy? Not to me. I think Tua Tagovailoa is a great bet to be a top 15 quarterback or greater. That's what I would say.
I'm cool with that.
Because I hate Mike Gesicki, and he's going to get 0 targets, and he's a burger. Roll Hunter Long, keep him on the taxi squad. And for what it's worth, Chase Edmonds will get some work, but the running back I want to own in Miami is Sony Michel.
It might be Raheem Mostert, but that's another take.
For 2 weeks. It'll be Raheem Mostert for 2 weeks, and then, unfortunately, as things do, I hate saying this, something bad will probably happen to Raheem Mostert, as it usually does, unfortunately.
So I'm going to cap this off talking about Cam Akers and Darryl Henderson. I think that Cam Akers is being drafted way too high. I think Darryl Henderson is being drafted way too low. And I think that the both of them are going to very quickly end up in a murky, ugly, grody, disgusting coin flip every week, 50-50 backfield. And I'm leaning towards taking Darryl Henderson at his ADP if both of these guys, say, are just a dollar store version of what we saw out of Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Both guys who finished right inside the top 24. I could see Akers and Henderson being guys that finish both right outside the top 24, maybe Akers being 25 or 26 and Henderson closer to 30 to 36. But people really, it seems like everybody forgot what Darryl Henderson was doing prior to the injury he suffered in week 12. I mean, this guy going into the bye, I believe was the RB9 overall. He had a snap count above 68% in more than half of those games. In 6 of the 11 games he played, he saw a 75% or higher snap count. So Sean McVay clearly had no qualms using him. I mean, he had games with well over 20 touches because he was being used in the receiving game. He had 4 games with 5 or more receptions. Like he was truly the feature back for the LA Rams until Cam Akers was healthy and came back. And when Cam Akers was healthy and came back, he was not the Cam Akers we saw in last year's playoffs. Obviously, he is returning from that Achilles injury, but it is noteworthy that he did kind of struggle. And these yards per attempt struggles are not something that's foreign to Cam Akers. I mean, even as a rookie, he had plenty of games well under 3.5 yards per carry, actually ended his regular season in 2020 with a big 21 carries for 34 yards. So there's definitely more than a few times where Cam Akers struggles to get it going on the ground. And that's really my main concern, because if Darryl Henderson is fully healthy as well as Cam Akers coming into this season, and Henderson showed he can be both a receiving back and a serviceable, if not above average option on the ground, I don't think that the Rams are going to risk doing what they did to Todd Gurley to Cam Akers again. And I could really see both of them getting a decent amount of volume and becoming pretty heavily involved, especially when the Rams are going to be beating up on some of these very poor NFC teams and will be up a lot.
You know I like Cam Akers.
I know
you raise a lot of good points. And maybe some points that I have not considered as I have been hammering. Well, actually, I don't have too many Cam Akers. I have a couple dynasty shares. I think for me, Cam Akers has become a guy I want to root for at this point. Coming back from the injury, seeing the situation, but wanting something to happen and that thing being in the range of outcomes is admittedly very different than that being the favorited outcome. And I think that what you're taking, AJ, is a very analytical and thoughtful approach, as which is honestly differing from my Cam Akers is back, which is kind of like where my head's been when I've been looking at Cam Akers. I will say, and actually, I'd like to follow up and ask you a question. If either one of these guys goes down, God forbid, because both of these guys have been hurt over their careers, would you imagine that whoever does get that job, whoever is the last man standing, would probably be a top 12, 15 back? Or are you expecting a guy like a Kyron Williams or a Jake Funk or the ghost of Xavier Jones to come back and like muddle things up? Or do you think that it's really just these two guys, and who, if one of them happens to be the lead guy, that guy will be a dog, but it's just too competitive?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think Darryl Henderson, again, he already showed it. He was on pace to finish the season as the RB9 when he was the feature back. Cam Akers obviously has had some explosive games. The consistency issue, the coming off of the Achilles, it does scare me a little bit. He is somebody who was targeted a lot less by Matthew Stafford. Stafford does tend to target his running backs, but I mean, when they played San Francisco in the NFC title game, he got one reception for 2 yards, averaged 3.5 yards per carry on the ground. If Henderson is healthy for that game, I really think they're both getting involved. I think it was a matter of necessity that Akers kind of got the volume he did in the playoffs. And that's not to say that Cam Akers isn't super talented. I just think people are really quick to forget that Sony Michel left, Darrell Henderson stayed, and there's really nobody else but them two. So,
well, this was a whole lot of fun.
Yes,
I honestly had the time of my life out here today. We're going to be on YouTube. We're going to be in your ears. We're going to be on Instagram. We're going to be on Twitter. Maybe we'll even screw around and you'll see a couple outtakes on TikTok or Instagram Reels. Don't get too excited. It could happen. I'm just saying. Very much like Cam Akers being a top 6 running back. While unlikely, it's within the realm of possibilities. I don't have Cam Akers as a top 6 running back. That's not a take that I'm going to say. Maybe top 18. Anyhow, divisional previews coming next week. The week after that, I'm going on a European adventure, which I'm very, very excited for. So we won't be on the mic then, but we will have a divisional preview, a break, and then 7 more weeks of previews. And then the nitty-gritty comes. And then we're going to blink, and it's going to be the eve of the NFL season, and the Rams and the Bills will be kicking off. It's less than 100 days, people. You got to start getting ready. And if you're not listening to the Pylon Dons, I got bad news for you. You're not going to be ready. You're not going to win your office league. Your cousin is going to kick your butt because your cousin probably listens to the Pylon Dons. AJ, any final words for the people?
That's the best outro you've ever done. I'm going to just say that on air right now. That was elite. Job well done. Again, make sure you guys check us out on socials at AJ and Ben, the Pylon Don, at the Pylon Dons, on Twitter, at Pylon Dons, on Instagram, Pylon Dons Fantasy Football on YouTube. Of course, check out Verse Gaming. Keep the house out of your bets and bet your friends with Verse. And you'll be hearing from us soon.
Divisional previews next week. Let's go!